Okay, I'm gaveling us back into session. Welcome back, everybody. Sorry for the extended break. Just want to remind everybody to please keep your comments respectful and on topic. If there's any further personal attacks in the chat, we're going to have to recess the meeting and restart it without a chat function enabled. So please keep that in mind. All right. We had several people lined up here who patiently been waiting. Did I get this wrong? I thought Governor Williams-Ruth had his hand up before Governor Higginson.
I did, and I hit the wrong button, but I will defer to Governor Higginson.
Okay, Governor Higginson, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a motion to make. I move that in response to question 2, assuming we do not vote to bifurcate and we keep our current structure, the executive director and the executive leadership team develop a backup emergency plan to present to the board for potential adoption in the event we are forced to change our current structure. This is effectively what Governor President-elect Dan Clark's comments were. And I have it written down.
I'll second that.
Could you send that to me, please?
Absolutely.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that in the event we don't vote to bifurcate, and I presume you're talking about question 3, right?
This was question 2. This is an answer to, in response to question 2.
I know, but the vote to bifurcate would be question 3, right? Or no?
Oh, yes. In my motion, assuming we do not vote to bifurcate and we keep our current structure, which for purposes of answering question 2, I'm assuming in my motion. Because I don't know what the vote will be, but if we don't vote to bifurcate and therefore we keep our current structure, then I think the executive director and the leadership team should develop a emergency plan to come back to us with.
My friendly amendment is to make sure that all the comments and papers submitted during this ETHOS process is considered.
Governor Higginson?
I don't know if that's really consistent with the intent. I don't really want to hamstring, which I know is surprising for people to hear me say. Don't really want to hamstring the executive director and the leadership team and what they're considering. I would trust that they would be considering pretty much everything that we've heard. So I prefer not to include that as a amendment to my motion.
So it's been moved and seconded. Right now, we don't have any motions to amend. Does anybody need to have the motion reread?
And I just sent it to Tara and I
Okay.
copied Brian, or excuse me, Mr. President.
Okay, the motion is in response to question 2, assuming we do not vote to bifurcate and we keep our current structure, the executive director and the executive leadership team develop a backup emergency plan to present to the board for potential adoption in the event that we are forced to change our current structure.
Okay, so let's continue with our comments now. Did you want to speak to the motion at all, Governor Higginson, or?
Briefly, only to say that I do think this is a good suggestion, and I think I can say that with a little more assurance since I'm not the one that actually came up with the idea. But I do think it makes sense for the people who would actually be on the ground having to move things around if this happened, and know best what would happen, what they would have to do to address a change, help us, rather than us trying to craft it ourselves as the board. So I would like their help myself. That's all. Thank you.
Governor Williams-Ruth.
Thank you. And thank you, Governor Higginson, for bringing us back to President-elect Clark's original prompt for this conversation. I'm supportive of the motion and actually was talking with President-elect Clark about it during our break. And I just want to maybe suggest for consideration a little clarifying, because the way I am game theorying out how this would come to fruition is a order that requires a complete and total bifurcation along the lines of the states that have the regulatory and voluntary bars, what California did, and not something along the lines of just putting off one program, as I have suggested, into a thing. So I would consider, and I'm watching you, Governor Higginson, for your reaction, as to whether you would be willing to allow for a little further clarification that the program and that the contingency plan be specifically called out for a complete and total bifurcation, and not a contingency plan to just put, like, say, political action in its own separate group, but really looking at a, for lack of a better term, worst case scenario.
Governor Higginson, you want to go ahead and respond? You're muted.
Sorry about that. Thank you. I think that makes a lot of sense. That was certainly the intent of my motion. And if we need to add a word or two in there to make it clear that this would be that we keep our current structure, when I make current structure needs to be modified, perhaps to say as currently configured, the Bar Association as it is currently configured. Would that be helpful?
No, what I'm talking about is the end result if a negative court order came, or again, I shouldn't describe positive or negative. If a court order came down that says a change must occur, I'm anticipating that order would be far-reaching, vast, and complete separation of entities. And I just want to make sure that if we're asking for the time and effort to be put into creating a emergency continuation of operation plan of what would happen, that it would be useful in that situation, and not one such as just saying, oh, well, the court just wants us to put off legislative work into its own separate group. So that's where I just wanted to get your intent in making the motion, because I would like to see a motion that asks for the full slate of a complete and total bifurcation contingency plan.
Mr. President, if I might just ask a question then of Governor Williams-Ruth. So it'd be the last clause in, and I know you don't have this in front of you, but it says, in the event we are forced to change our current structure, that's the clause that we would want to, you're suggesting maybe we clarify, and I can send this.
Yes, please. That's what, just, because again, a changing of structure could literally be that the Board of Governors have 15 people instead of 14. I mean.
Okay, in the event that we were forced to disband the current organizational structure?
Well, and again, this is one where maybe we look to what the terminology is, because I know we've talked about, we've used the terminology mandatory, integrated, voluntary. I mean, again, this is where I'm not sure what term we want to use, but in using non-terms of art, what I would like to see is a plan sitting on the shelf that would require us to go into a complete and total separated, bifurcated, mandatory structure with voluntary, again, we've used so many different terms of art over the last 5-6 months. I'm not sure which ones would be appropriate, which is why I want to have this conversation to make sure we're saying the right thing.
Mr. President, if I might, just so everybody can follow this readily, I will just put in chat the motion and with the proposed language that has been changed at the end. In the event we are forced by court order to separate the regulatory from the non-regulatory functions. So if that's consistent with what Brett is suggesting, then I would accept that as a friendly amendment if my second would accept it.
I guess my concern,
I'm sorry, are you going to go ahead, Governor Higginson, and put that in the chat now?
I just did,
Oh, you did.
if I did it right. I don't use chat very
Too many
much.
people are chatting.
I'm just not that chatty.
No, I don't think it got in here yet. I don't see it.
Oh, it didn't?
Yeah,
Okay.
try another cut and paste.
Darn it. Hmm. Okay, there it is.
There it is.
Oops, I missed the last, darn it. Sorry, everyone. I'll try one more time. I missed the last bit of when I copied it. I apologize. There. Look at the second one I said.
Thank you, Governor Higginson. That was the clarification I was seeking.
Is the clarification acceptable to the second?
yeah, that's acceptable to me. I mean, I guess my only concern is if the court would indicate something different than, complete bifurcation of the bar. But I guess I'm fine with the current motion. If we wanted to make a change, it might be to, in the event that they see that the court may be moving in a different way, make preparations for that. But I'm fine. Anyway, the change is acceptable to me as the second.
Okay, so I have 3 people in the queue right now, plus I think there's somebody else, right? Or you're gonna, to do the question. Okay, good. So we got Council Shanklin, followed by Executive Director Nevitt, followed by, I believe, the esteemed Governor Alex Stevens.
Okay, thank you. Chief Disciplinary Counsel Ende has asked me to read a comment. His comment, he is not in a place where he can enable his microphone. So his comment is, I suggest that the board not develop a contingency plan based on a guess about what the United States Supreme Court might do. If the United States Supreme Court does opine on integrated bars someday, it might decree a radical change, such as that mandatory membership associations violate the First Amendment, or a fairly minor tweak, such as that the manner of administering the Keller deduction needs refinement. But it will not happen quickly. We'll see it coming from a mile away, and there will be time to make a plan then, one tailored to the actual decision in the case or as developed in subsequent litigation on remand. Let's not make the mistake WSBA and the Supreme Court made in 1987 when Keller was still pending. That is, guessing what the law would be, guessing wrong, and spending time, effort, and even enacting a rule, GR 12.2C, that is out of alignment with what the law actually turned out to be. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I believe we're up to Executive Director Nevitt, followed by Governor Stevens, followed by Governor Pertzer, followed by Governor-elect Fay.
I note that there's another personal attack in the chat.
Whoop. We made a warning that we're going to have to shut the chat down if this if this happens. So I think we're going to have to take a recess right now and do that, which means we're going to take an early lunch. If I don't know if lunch is here. Is it here? We're going to end the room right now. We gave a warning, didn't happen. Going to have to make a change.
President Collison, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Is there a way that we can enable the chat for certain governors?
No. So
we'll have an accommodation. Perhaps we'll have an accommodation issue.
Yeah, we're working on that.
we're working on that
Right.
too. We're way ahead of you there. So we're going to take a recess now, and take an early lunch. We'll try and reconvene hopefully by 12:30. Right.
Shelley, what time is lunch coming? Okay.
Sorry, there's a question. What's the question? We'll be back then this afternoon.
That you're shutting down the chat room?
There's more being put in.
Because I just was curious if there are other members of the public, for
Okay,
example.
thank you. We're gonna shut down the meeting right now. I'm sorry. We have to break, and we'll be right back after the break, which will be in about an hour.
And then you'll
from now.
answer my question about the chat room?
We'll be happy to
Okay,
answer it
because there
then.
would be other members of the
Thank
public
you.
potentially out there who are behaving themselves
Thank you.
and want to have input. And I almost stayed home today and I'd be unable to participate. So I'm just concerned about people who aren't here.
I'm real glad you're here. Thank you very much.
People will still be able to participate verbally, just not in the chat.
Okay, we're gonna take our recess now.